Welcome back to Cathedral Young Adult Happy Hour, our podcast for young adults here at the Cathedral of the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus in Knoxville, Tennessee. Today, my guest is Mrs. Monica Ward, who we get to discuss motherhood, work with motherhood, before, after, all things that are just tremendous. How are you doing today, Monica?
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is such a pleasure.
This is so great to have you. What's really nice is you don't work too far, so we were able to just kind of snag you.
Yeah, I just walked on over when my kids were at art. It was great.
Oh, that's tremendous. So we're going to get to know a little bit more about you. If you don't know about us, our Happy Hour podcast can be found on all the major places that you get things, right? So I'm an Android guy. I know. It's the best.
Man,
I know is what you were going to say. It's the best. It's
No.
okay. And you can find us on Google Podcasts. I think if you're that other...
Yeah, Apple Podcast, it
that
works really well. Spotify.
One day I'll tell you the story about trying to get this podcast onto Apple Podcast.
Was it rough?
It was a 2-week process just to get it
Wow.
submitted.
Oh, my.
I know.
That's funny because I feel like on Apple Podcasts, you can find a lot of things that don't seem like they went through a 2-week process.
No, not at all. It's just a weird way that they have you set it up and blah, 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 whatever. I mean, It ended up working, so you can find us there, but you can also find us, of course, on Spotify, right?
Yes.
Pandora.
Oh,
Do you know
wow.
Pandora?
That's, yeah. I think my grandma has a Pandora account. It's older. Yeah. I
Well,
think
Monica's grandma, if you're listening, you can search us up on your favorite Pandora channel. Oh, that's great. So you can find us all those places. Happy Hour, Cathedral Young Adults Podcast. Share it. Share this podcast. It's not hard to share anymore. It's super easy. So we are thrilled to have you here with us, Monica. And I think you probably wanted to mention that today you do have a little bit of a cold.
Yeah, so I am under the weather. I have my daughter's preschool bug. Like most people with children understand, you get it from your kids. So I don't sound like this all the time. So thank you for bearing with me, my nice voice.
Yes, well, we'll try to put up with it today, all right?
Thanks.
Yeah, I think you'll be just fine. So, Monica, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you've come from, how you got involved here at the Cathedral, when did you start working at the school,
Yeah.
all these things. Tell us a little bit about you.
joy.
Yeah.
So I'm from the Knoxville area. And so I left, went to school at Tennessee Tech, and then decided that I really missed home. And so in a way, Knoxville's home, but also the Cathedral's home. So when my husband and I were getting married, we knew that we wanted to get married, wherever we desired to be parishioners. So it made sense for us to be married, here in the old church before the cathedral was built.
Were you weren't the last?
No,
I forget who that
the
was.
last wedding. It is neat though. So they've for those of you who haven't seen it, they've renovated the cathedral hall now. Was the old cathedral into a sort of a meeting space. And so when people have their wedding receptions, the dance floor is where we got married. So that's a little bit weird for us to see. It's like, oh, that's where we had our sacrament. But anyway, at the time we were getting married, I was about to enter into my teaching residency, finishing up my degree. And so, talking with Father David in pre-Cana, and he's like, oh, Patrick, my husband, what do you do? Da, 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 da. Monica, what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm about to finish my teaching degree. He goes, well, I have a school. And I was like, just fear struck, like, oh, I really, really want you to marry us, Father. So I'm going to bend over backwards to do what you ask. So some of it was fear. I like to think most of it was obedience.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I finished my teaching residency at the school and really just learned how to teach here. It was such a gift to be able to develop that in a Catholic setting.
Yeah.
And so then I graduated. Our principal reached out and was like, I'd really like to keep you on staff, which was such a blessing in our family's life. And so we've been here ever since.
How long ago was that?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2020. So the 2019-2020 school year was when I finished residency, and 2020 on, I've been here teaching.
So you're a true young adult.
I am.
You're not like 40 years old or something.
No, the ripe old age of 25. Oh yeah, just young. So my husband and I have been married for almost 4 years now.
Wow.
Yes.
Is that crazy?
It is crazy. It feels like it's been 40 and also about 4 minutes. So
certain times it feels like 40.
Yes.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
other times it's just quick.
It
right?
is. It
And
is.
here's the beautiful part. You are recently a mom.
I am. We have an 11-month-old daughter, Josephine Hope.
So good.
It is so good. So parenthood has been second to our marriage, one of the biggest blessings in our life. But it's changed a lot too.
Yeah.
And I think for most people, having a baby, it changes, your marriage, it changes your work-life balance. And it should, right? Like children are a blessing and should help you grow into that best version of yourself.
Absolutely. And you got what? A solid 3 years of just the two of you, and then that longing that there's, while that's tremendous, there's still more.
Yes.
Yeah. And then to see that fulfilled is just, it's a beautiful thing. And of course, being good Catholics, you probably have more in the future.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that. And
we love that question. Like, does natural family planning work? And you're like, yeah, no, it does for sure. Like, 3 years, I think is proof that it does.
yes.
But yeah, that was a big grace too of when we're continuing to practice natural family planning, is that the Lord puts that desire on your heart, right? Like, it's just so evident that the goal of marriage is ordered towards family.
Yeah.
And not every family looks like biological children, but for us it does. And so we've been really grateful for that.
Yeah. There might be some people listening who don't know what natural family planning is, old NFP,
Don't get us started.
Is that right? If you could sum up NFP to a lay person walking by in a 30-second spot, what would you say?
Sure. So as Catholics, we believe that sex belongs within marriage, and sex should be both procreative and unitive. So that means that it is ordered in a loving way, brings spouses together, and also invites the Lord, if you're at that point in your fertility to conceive a child, to work within God's plan for that. So basically, it's putting you in charge of your own fertility without the use of birth control or hormonal, methods.
Yeah, and even though you're in control, you're also leaving it open to not being in control, right?
Yeah,
which is tremendous. Yeah. So that's great. I think, people probably hear the buzzing in the background. Sorry. That's my phone buzzing. I made the mistake of leaving it on the table. So my apologies if you heard the buzzing. That's on me. Okay. So natural family planning, tremendous, wonderful, love it. But now we're going to deal with, the fact that, so you've been married, you had this position before a child, right? Working for the school. Of course, pandemic year.
Oh man.
That made it interesting, right?
Did.
So you started the pandemic year, right? So you started 2 years ago.
Yes.
So you got a year. Did you get a full year in before the shutdown, or was it?
Yes.
You did.
So I had one full academic year prior to the shutdown.
But that was okay. You were still wrapping up you got the full year in. Okay.
So my first full year of teaching was like our last normal year.
Okay. Got it. So 2019, 2020.
Right.
I gotcha.
And then, that next, so last year, we had the fall semester, things were great. And spring semester, spring break hit, we kind of shut down. So I had like 3/4 of a year last year. And then in the fall, I had my maternity leave and came back in January.
Wow.
So
you at least got to experience one
normal year.
Quote unquote normal year of teaching.
Yeah. What is a normal year of teaching?
I don't know. My mom was an educator. She was a teacher for a long time, over 40 years. I don't know if she could tell you what a normal year of teaching is, right? It's it's all different. So you got to experience all that pre-baby.
Yes.
now you're post baby. Post baby. That doesn't sound right. Post having a child.
Sure. She's still here, right?
She's still here. She's still a baby. So
Right.
She's 11 months old. By the way, best eyes on a baby I've seen in such a long time. Her eyes are just crazy, like cut through you, blue, like just tremendous. Love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now you have a child.
Yes.
And you're back. And we're back in person, right?
Yes.
So there is a shift.
There is. You could say that.
All the emotions, all of the everything. You were dealing with other people's children before.
Yes.
And you still are dealing with other people's children, but there is a huge difference once you have your own.
Absolutely. Yeah. I used to, and I think at points, probably my husband would rat me out, still do, call my students my kids.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'd come home and Patrick, my husband, would be like, oh, how's your day? I'd be like, oh, well, my kids, they were great. And da, da, da. And now, of course, we have our own child. And so that phrase, it's just different. But yeah, in a way they still are. I think time management as a working mother, probably most working moms would tell you is a huge adjustment, right? Just figuring out what are the things that in my day have to get done.
Yeah.
And even most days finding time just to do that list, right? Like I have to attend to my daughter. I have to be present in my workplace, and I want to be. I have to be, wholly there for my family. And at the same time, right? Like I have to go to the grocery store. I have to, find time every day for personal prayer. So really just prioritizing for me those things in my day that are non-negotiables, making those happen first, and then really coming to terms and accepting as much as I can the fact that the other stuff just might not get done.
Right.
Right? Like we might be having breakfast for dinner the third night in a row because, the grocery store, it just didn't happen this week.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like there might be 5 loads of laundry at my house that don't get done until Sunday afternoon. That's okay.
And that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that shift in your thought process of what pre-child, what are important values, right? And then post having a child, what really are important values. So there's also this change in that. So you're a professional.
Yes.
You're a wife.
Yes.
Now you're a professional, you're a wife, and you're a mother. and adding that one thing is huge because even just what you're talking about, time management and being present. So you have to be present for your child. Absolutely 100%. When we become parents, right? That is our choice to say, all right, well, now it's no longer about me.
Not even in the slightest bit.
I come super last, and that's okay.
Yeah, and it should be.
And it should be, yeah. But now you also have to balance being a wife, but also being a wife with a child. Those are two very different things.
They are.
Right? Like parents together parenting a child, but then also parents without the child being right there. So you're still just husband, wife.
Yes.
Making time out for that, making time out just for you. It's incredible that women can do it and do it really well.
Thank you. I don't always feel like we do it really well.
Sure.
But I know at the end of the day, right, like the Lord sees what we were able to do and he will bless the rest.
Yeah.
Like he blesses what we can do. He blesses what we can't. And, the Lord knows what we're working with and will make the rest abundantly happen.
Yeah.
You know? And I think parenthood, marriage are really, really good opportunities to lean into trust and humility.
Humility's big time.
Yeah, because you're not ever going to be the perfect anything, right? Like I'm not a perfect wife. I'm not a perfect mother. I'm not a perfect teacher. But I can be all of those things faithfully. Yeah, and I can be all of those things with effort. And just really leaning in and knowing that the Lord sees that. My husband sees that. My daughter sees that. My principal sees that. And there's a deep appreciation and respect, right, for the humanity that we're not perfect and nobody is. And the community that you surround yourself with, right, whether that's your spouse, your children, your family, your workplace, right, if those people are also honest with themselves, right, like they know they're not perfect too. There's an appreciation for, I see the other person, I see what they can give me, and I love them for that. Yeah. The Lord will provide the rest.
Yeah. And having a child actually brings that clarity to that situation, right? You become more patient, because you have to be more patient with yourself.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
if you're smart at all, you then start to see, oh, well, I guess I probably need to be patient with other people,
Yes.
right?
Having a baby has made me an infinitely more receptive teacher.
Yes.
Because I'll see my students, right, like processing something or working through something, and I see them, even, I teach third grade, so even at 8 years old, right, and I see my daughter in them.
Yeah.
And I see her, this sounds so silly, but just like putting things into her mouth,
Yep.
right? Or like walking towards an electrical cord. And I just want to be like, Josephine, no, like that's not for you. But it's with love, right?
Yeah.
Like I would say to her, no, don't do that because of her safety. Or I would play with her, those blocks, those light up Fisher-Price toys that litter our living room floor, because I love her.
Yeah.
And so then entering into the classroom and seeing my students, you're like, oh, you are somebody's precious baby.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, your parents, they send you to this amazing Catholic community school. By the way, if you're listening and you have any questions about Sacred Heart, it's an amazing school. I'd love to talk with you.
You can email Monica anytime with any
man.
question. She'd be happy to answer it.
We are like all in, man. Sacred Heart's just like the place. But not perfect, but it belongs to Jesus Christ.
That's
and
right.
makes up for everything.
Yes.
But yeah, you're like, you're somebody's baby, and your parents send you to school for the purpose of being educated and knowing Christ.
Right.
And to be given that opportunity as an adult who's not someone's parent, right? I'm their teacher, just their teacher.
Yeah.
It's a huge privilege and responsibility, and yeah, parenthood makes you see things through a different set of eyes.
Yeah, and then you have to then translate that saying no or, showing them the right direction when they're in the wrong direction because of love, right?
Yes.
I think there's this misconception nowadays that love means you let the person do whatever they want, right? That because you love them, you're just going to let them do whatever they want.
Sure.
But I always use the analogy of my son Christian, who's 6 years old, also at the school. He would love to eat ice cream for breakfast every day.
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah.
Smart boy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Truly smart, but wouldn't be good for him.
No.
No, I love my son. Does that mean I just let him eat ice cream every morning? No, of course not. I love him. I know what's best for him. Because I love him, I'm going to tell him no. The great gift of no.
No, I love that word.
Yeah.
I tell my students, no is a complete sentence. It really is.
It really is.
It doesn't have to be in a mean way. No.
No, of course not.
Yeah, my third grade team and I like to joke that the word discipline, right, at its root is the word disciple.
Yes.
And so when you are disciplining yourself,
Yes.
your family, a child, your child, it's always with the intention of making a disciple.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like never with the intention of just outright punishment or meanness, but with the intention of bringing that person closer to Christ.
Absolutely.
Or bringing myself closer to Christ, disciplining myself.
My goodness. Yeah. That's an hourly, maybe a minutely thing.
Yes.
Right. For me, it definitely is. And I love that. So now you've been a part of the young adult initiative here. You've been part, I don't know if you were part of the young adult stuff before the St. Meinrad everything. What does that all look like over the years? What are some of your favorite things? What do you hope to see for young adults?
Sure. So I really love getting together in the context of the sacrament. So one of my favorite things that we've ever done is Adoration and Abridged. Yeah. Which is where, as a young adult community, Wednesday nights we get together for adoration. The sacrament of confession is also offered. It's probably my best available time.
Right.
It's really good. And then afterwards, we all go from the cathedral down to Abridged, which is like a bar. You can get some food. It's outdoors. It's just really nice and casual, but it's a way to come together both in Christ and in community. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoyed that. I've also really enjoyed partaking in the young women's Bible study small group on Tuesday nights at 7 for anybody who's interested. Yeah. But yeah, getting together and just walking through scripture with the people who are maybe not all in the same stage of life, but who all share, right, like a feminine heart and a desire to be more familiar with God and scripture is a gift.
With no pressure of having to say anything.
No.
It's just about being present.
It is.
Right?
It is.
And that's a great great tool to use because we have the men's Bible study as well.
Right. Sundays at 3.
It's the both and see, you know how it works. And we are gaining a lot more momentum now as well. We have other events that are happening. In fact, this Sunday we have a wine tasting event, right, with a certified sommelier.
Oh my!
I know,
so classy,
it's very official. And we have other things coming up as well. We're going to have mass with a guest speaker who just happens to be a nun. And I don't want to say too much too early, but we have all kinds of events that I'm so honored to be a part of because, quite honestly, I'm not a young adult anymore.
What?
I've aged out of being a young adult.
Man.
I know. I think once you have more than 5 kids, you're probably not a young adult anymore.
Yeah, just by sheer number of years.
Yeah, and years even that maybe aren't added but felt.
Sure. Yeah, I know, absolutely.
Right? And I have 8, so I'm well beyond being a young adult. But I love being a part of it because there's such great hope with our young adults and our faith. Mm-hmm. I see a more concerted effort in terms of intentionality in our faith.
Yes.
Now than ever before. It's not out of fear that we walk into the church. It's out of a want, a desire to have a relationship with Jesus.
Yes. It's been a blessing to get to know other young families, right? Like just because you have a baby doesn't make you an instantly boring person.
No! Or 8.
Sure. Yeah. No. Or 8. But yeah, it's been nice to tap into that young adult community and get to know young families. It can feel like, young families don't always have a place in the church other than rocking your baby in the back of the narthex.
Exactly.
And so to see we're all kind of roughing it together, right? Like in faith, we're all roughing it together.
And it's almost this like when you're at mass and you're looking around there, other people with children, you almost get that nod. You know the nod.
Yes,
like
the understanding, your baby cried,
Yep.
I saw it, we saw it, and mine's about to.
Yep.
So you're all good.
Yeah. And it's sometimes a wink, sometimes, one of my favorite things. Yeah. Like, come on, you got this. And I love that community. Just walking in and feeling it, not just maybe because we're newish, right? But we felt it immediately in this community. It was like everybody's got each other's back. We understand where you're at. We love where you're at. We're going to journey with you, and we're just excited that you're here. And we're excited that you're here listening to this podcast, this happy hour podcast. Which, by the way, we've run out of time. Is that not crazy?
It feels like it was just a minute.
I know. Well, we'll have to have you on again, Monica. Maybe we'll bring Patrick in too.
Oh man.
Maybe even the third member.
Oh, Josephine.
Would that?
She could just squabble into the microphone.
Yeah, exactly. Any noise she makes would be a bonus to our podcast. I guarantee it.
Maybe not some crying, but other than that.
I'll take it. I'll take anything. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you again so much for having me. It's such a privilege.
It is an honor and a privilege. And we look forward to seeing you all at our cathedral events, but also worshiping with us on Sunday at Mass. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time on the Cathedral Young Adults Happy Hour.